Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Kelsey. Welcome back, and in today's video I have got a best build for you guys for the Oathbound Paladin. So this is going to be the Perma Bubble and DPS build. You're going to be working on a lot of Reflect and stuff like that. It's not raw power as it is with the Great Weapons Fighters and other characters like that. So the first thing you want to go to is your race. So I have picked the Dragonborn race because you get 5% more healing from all spells and abilities, as well as your power and critical chance are each 3% higher than that of other races. So the powers you'll want to go for are Radiant Strike and Valorous Strike. These are your at-wills. You're going to have them from the beginning and you're going to keep them throughout your build all the way through. So Radiant Strike, I have that on my secondary at will. So you lunge at the enemy, unleashing a burst of light. You are also granted Radiance. So your armor penetration and damage are increased by 5% for 15 seconds. This is great because, of course, it's increasing your DPS for all your abilities, all your powers, and everything. So Valorous Strike increases your damage resistance by 5%. It doesn't stack, but it does last for 15 seconds. Again, the same as Radiant, the time of it. So you're going to be wanting to do this, get a few powers off, then go back to it. So the ability, the class features you want are Aura of Courage. You and your allies within 30 of you deal 1% of your maximum hit points as bonus radiant damage. So this is great because you're stacking Constitution, so this goes up and up and up. And plus those rank 2, rank 3 and rank 4 damage bonuses for that are an insane boost to have. They are really nice. The next one is Aura of Vengeance. So when you or an ally within 30 of you take damage, they deal 15% of your weapon damage to their attacker as radiant damage. You will see why this is one that you have to have. But Aura of Courage is the most important one to have on your class because your hit points are the highest and it's a massive radius, so you can get all your group members in it. Then starting off with the one of the dailies that you're going to get is Divine Judgment. So this is a very high DPS daily. It's only one shot, but it's a very close blast. So as you can see, it has a range of 40 and a blast of 10. So if you catch other people in it, it will pretty much do exactly what it does on its main person around the area. So if you get 100k, it will pretty much do about 90 to 100k on other enemies. Doesn't matter how many there are, as long as they're in that 10 blast, you'll get that. That is a massive ability to have into your class, especially when you know that and you're using it, firing it off. We're going to go straight into the powers. So at the minute I have Bane on. You're going to notice that some of the characters, if you're running dungeons, they will take a lot of damage. This is a nice one to have because it stacks up to 3 times. You deal 10% more damage to your target, and they do 10% less damage to you. So of course this is going to rack up. You'll see why later. And the ranks just increase the durations of them rather than the charges themselves. But otherwise, instead of Bane, if you're running on your own, you can run Smite. It's a great one to have. It ignites your enemy for 15 seconds and damages them over time as well. With each rank increasing its damage further, so it's up to about 9.5 to 11,000. But the next ability or power you're going to want is Templar's Wrath. As you can see, I've got 4 out of 4, and I will tell you why. So you unleash a storm of holy energy, dealing heavy damage to all nearby foes and stunning them. So that is a key thing to remember as well. So Oath of Protection, when you follow that path, you gain 300% of the damage dealt as HP in temp hit points. So this is a huge thing to remember. You have already got 110,000 hit points, as you can see later on. I will have that much, plus 300% of your weapon damage dealt if you've got other buffs on it. I have at one point in Demogorgon, I had 420,000 hit points as temps, so that's 4 times as much as my maximum hit points. So I've got 500k hit points in total. If you get you cannot get one-shotted from that. It's insane. You need to get Templar's Wrath up higher because, as you can see, it's temp hit points depending on how much you've dealt, and the more you get in the ranks, the more damage you deal, so the higher that goes up. So the next and the last one you're going to want is Binding Oath. So the reason being, you force your enemies to attack you for 2 seconds, and during this time you absorb all the damage, and you take 50% of that damage and then deal 20% of it out to all foes in a 30 area. So players affected by that. That's PvP. That's not this build anyway. So the rank 1, 2 and 3 increase the duration. I haven't got it up full because at the minute I am taking quite a bit of damage from using this. You can find your one shot yourself because those 2 extra seconds, especially if you're fighting a boss, can rack up quite quickly. That is why I'm running Bane at this second in time. So we're going to move straight on. Oh no, down to the bottom. Oh, almost forgot the vital piece of this build. Wow, that was close. So the last daily, this is the part of the perma bubble. That's why I didn't want to miss it. So the Divine Protector is the daily, and for 5 seconds you shield all your allies from harm. You redirect 100% of the damage they would take to yourself. All damage you would take whilst this effect is active is reduced by 80%. So we're going to move into the feats next. So this is where you want to start off. You want to get those maximum hit points, as I say, because that's going to match up really nicely with Aura of Courage. And then you want this 5 out of 5. So activating Divine Call, so that's your RB button, generates 5% of your maximum HP. So AP. So that's going to be, again, that's going to be generating your daily ability quicker. And then before you can go into the next one, you have 1 point left. So we just put that into critical chance as we've maxed them all out. And the ones down here, we don't want your encounter powers. You could have this one if you're a low paladin. If you're going to respec later on and your feats and boons, then yes, I would say go for this one, just because it can get your AP back a lot quicker anyway. But 6% once you have a very, very high recovery anyway is not a lot. Like, I've got my encounters down to 15 seconds, and RB, that uses it, and that brings down your cooldowns of your things anyway. So 6% of 15 seconds is probably 1 second, so it's not that great. But as I say, for lower level players, you do want this one. People have gone for this one, the Light's Shield, so increase your damage resistance. Yeah, maybe, but 5 points to just get 2.5 damage resistance when you've got a lot anyway, plus a boon later on gives you 3%. So I'd say no, I want to go for the bottom one, so your at-will powers deal 6% more damage. As you'll see later on, that stacks even more. And then you have Divine Atonement, so you receive 6% more healing from spells. No, you don't want that because your temp hit points are going to be covering your own base hit points anyway, so you don't need healing. Then you've got Impassioned Please. You generate 6% faster Divine Call energy. Yes, please, we want that. You want that because it goes around a big circle. You get more Divine Call, you boost that. That then gives you AP, which then cools down your encounters. You can bring out your encounters, which give you more AP. Big snowball effect of AP, basically. That's what we want. Dominating Presence. Your aura has increased radius. So you could have at least one, if you have 2 points to spare, like with your human abilities. If you're a human race, sorry, you might want to put some points into this because your Aura of Courage is larger, especially in something like Demogorgon or Tiamat, things like that. Radius is bigger, you can catch more people in it. You go into the last one, you want 3 out of 3, a minimum on your Constitution grants you an additional 1.5% or 2% maximum hit points. So the reason being, as I say, is Aura of Courage is one of the main feat classes, class features. You're definitely going to want it, and you do need it in this build. Then we go on down to the bottom. So this is Force of Will. So this is a really nice one. It says each point of charisma now increases your critical chance by an additional 60 or 0.66%. If you get that up to 1, so I have at the minute 27 points into that. So you have an additional 27% critical chance. That is amazing. I mean, it's quite a good one. You probably would get away with just having 1 point in there because critical chance isn't going to be working with the reflect part of our build. It only works for your powers and at-wills, but still having that as high as you can is really great to have. But Divine Wisdom, each point of wisdom now increase your healing. We aren't a healing build, so we'll forget that. So when you're running through this, which path do you take first? You definitely want to take the Justice Pass first. When you hit level 30, reason being because when you strike a foe you have Swift Flash, so this is probably an annoying one to have. I'd rather it be in the middle, but so what, you have to put up with it. It just increases your movement speed by 30%. It also gets you through the first path of the Paragon paths, so that's out of the 2. You get control strength is increased. No. Control, the only thing we have control-wise is Templar's Wrath, and it's not that great anyway. So you could have Furious Reversal. We don't really want that because if your hit points are dropping that low anyway, you're most likely going to die in the first place. So we take Flash of Light. So your encounter powers have a 25% chance to reduce the cooldowns of nearby allies' encounter powers by 10%. So 10%, especially for a healer, if they're giving you haste and things like that, is insane because their Bastion of Health is usually about 25 seconds, 20 seconds. So to reduce that by 2 seconds, that is good. And it's a 25% chance, so you're repping out your encounter powers lots of times, really quick. And you keep using this and it reduces them down really fast. It's a nice one to have, especially, as I say, if you are the only one in your class. If you're a high up paladin, you're going to be the only one. You are going to be the support class in the group. You can cool down their encounter powers. So you have Radiant Champion. Your very presence inspires your allies. When you have at least 2 other allies within 30 of you, all of you gain 25% more movement speed and 5% cooldown reduction. Again, that stacks as well. That puts it on top of your character. If you're the only support class, this is great to have. And if you're running PvE a lot, or PvP for that matter, you're going to have at least 2 other people in there anyway. And it's amazing to just get that movement speed and that cooldown reduction. So stem the tide. While no other allies within 30 of you, you gain snare by 25% and take 5% more damage from all sources. So that's okay if you're running on your own. Obviously the low levels, if you're just creating a character and you're able to respec later on, I would take this one. But for your end game, no way. You're going to be running with a lot of group members. You don't want that. Echoes of Light. Your at-will powers have a 5% chance to trigger Echo on you. Echo makes your next encounter power instantly recharge all of your encounter powers. So this is you have to have this one, because when you use your encounter powers, you're generating AP. If you use all 3 of them, and on the 3rd one you hit this one, you get the Echo, boom, you can rep through them all again and collect that extra AP. You have to have this one, especially if you're Beacon of Hope. You don't want that one. That's to do with healing. You just don't want that one. Prism, again, is healing, and they nerfed Prism, so you cannot use it's not as effective as it used to be if you put it with damage. So this is the way to go. Purifying Fire. Your at-will powers apply Purifying Fire, which stacks up to 5 times, dealing 10% weapon damage each time the stack is applied. This damage is doubled for each stack applied to the target. Purifying Fire lasts 60 seconds, but is removed when you strike the target with an encounter power. So plus... So bind that with the at-will abilities earlier, that's 6%. This is a big boost onto your character, so it's nice to have. A lot of the time you aren't going to be using your at-wills, but if there is a time gap between you using your abilities, your Divine Call and your powers, this is a nice one to have, especially with that extra damage. You can rack it up nice and quickly. And the final point is Vengeful Judge. So your Divine Call now also applies Judge to yourself for 10 seconds. Judge increases your damage dealt. That's a no-brainer. You have to go for it. As well as reducing your cooldown of your currently recharging powers. So again, by 35%, that is a massive boost. If you're at 15 seconds, that brings it down to like just over 7 seconds. Purely because of the other things you've got as well, which brings it down further. And your encounter powers have a chance to immediately grant you a charge of Divine Call. So obviously when you press RB, it takes up 1 point on the left side, and then when you use your encounters, it can bring it back instantly. So again, that Divine Call is then producing AP. You can see where this build is going. You're just constantly rotating through your encounters, your Divine Call, and your at-wills, and your AP, and your dailies, everything like that. You're constantly on the go. There's no break, unlike other classes where you having your encounters, you use them, and then there's a time where you go through your at-wills. No, there's none of that. You're just repping out your encounters constantly. So the final part is the Light Path. You heal for 10% more. You want that because sometimes you do drop if you go into battle first and you just do your Templar's Wrath too late. Enemies can hit you and you want your health back as quick as possible, else you are going to die, and you just want that because when you take damage, this is the other part, it increases the strength of your heals. We don't do any healing at all. It's a pointless thing to have. You might as well just have that extra healing in case. And then Warrior's Bastion, 10% more defense from your equipment. Yeah, out of the 2, You definitely want that. Again, your healing spells, we don't do any. Otherwise, the AP would be nice, but no thank you. We don't do any healing anyway. But 10% increased defense is great for this build. It's about, you want power, stacking defense, constitution, things like that. It's amazing to have. And then Aura's Gifts, allies within 30 of you gain 25% of your power. They must remain within 30 of you for at least 6 seconds to gain this buff. So obviously, if you're fighting a boss, 6 seconds into the battle, they gain you 25% of your power. My minimum power now, as you'll see, is like 9 and a bit thousand. So let's say when I'm in battle that goes up to 10k, they gain 2,500 power just off me standing next to them, not even doing anything. Think of the stacks that we provide as well as the other players in there. This just snowballs up again. So, gone through the feats and abilities like that, we're now going to go on to the boons. So, Sharandar. Haven't quite finished this one, but the ones you're going to want is either power or defense. This one, because you'll see later on, we've put some power into other boons. You're just going to take this one as defense. So you got deflection and crit strike. I would take crit strike over this. If you're not happy with your defense and you're okay with respecing your feats and boons, then go with deflection. If you're not quite happy with it, then take it. But I would take crit strike purely because your powers will then do more damage overall anyway. It's not just critical chance. You want to go for your 3% action point gain. As I say, it's a perma bubble build. You want to just be sitting in there getting your action points, especially if it's over the maximum hit points. There's other times when you can collect that later on. And when being struck by a foe, you have a chance to deal yourself up to 20,000 hit points. So again, this is great because you're being hit, you're taking damage, and you can just instantly rebuild it automatically. The other one was when striking a foe, you have a chance to deal up to 20,000 arcane damage. It's alright, but to be quite honest, if you're the only support class in your group and your bubble drops for a split second, you do not want to die. You want to at least be able to get 20,000 back for that. So then later on, what would I want? I would definitely go for Elvish Fury. When you kill a foe, you gain 135 power for 45 seconds. This stacks up to 30 times. When you start getting better than the average player, this ability really pulls through and you will just launch yourself into an amazing score, damage dealt, especially, as I say, because it's a stack and it does 30 times. The first time you kill someone, you get 135, so you're doing better. And then you do more and more and more, so you just snowball again. If you are taking a lot of damage and you want to go for deflection, there is a new enchantment called the Shadow Clad enchantment. This one would be great for this Fey Thistle, as it increases the amount of the deflection chance and the deflect your attack of 3,000 damage to your attacker, and that's why you may want to take this one. But other than that, there's nothing else. You just want the Elvish Fury and the Fey Thistle. So next one is the Dread Ring. So what would you take in here? Well, critical strike and movement, no thank you. If you're going over power every time. You always want power over the top of movement. It gives you your Templar's Wrath, a big hit, so you can get more temp hit points back. Lifesteal over regeneration, yes. Deflection chance over resistance. Again, if you're using that Shadow Cloud enchantment and you're going for deflection, then yeah, I would take this, but no way. If you've not selected deflection at all, just hit that damage resistance. 3% on top of what you've already got is insane. And Enraged Regrowth. When taking damage, you have a chance to heal up to 20,000 hit points over a few seconds. After this effect ends, you have 4,000 more defense for 10 seconds. Great for if you're with a boss. Collecting 4,000 defense is insane. When dealing damage, you don't really want the Shadow Touch, because again, it's the same like the other one. You have a chance of doing it, but most of the time, everybody else is going to be doing it. This is the one you want. You don't want Rampaging Madness because you're not going to be dealing that much damage through your at-wills and things like that. You want Augmented Thane Bastion. Whenever you take damage, you have a chance to generate a shield that absorbs up to 10,000 incoming damage and redirects that damage to nearby foes. So again, you're creating that aggro with Binding Oath. Everyone hits you, that builds up a stack very, very quickly, and 10,000 incoming damage is then redirected back out very often and very quickly. So the next one we want to go to is Icewind Dale campaign. So you're going to start off with again an AoE resist over the top of combat advantage, purely because AoE is a big one to have, especially with bosses and things like that. They usually put down AoEs more than anything. And then 400 incoming healing over stamina guard gain, because you don't want to be sat in that sanctity. Although it is very good, you can't use any of your abilities or your at-wills. You're pretty stuck in just healing up. So there's no point. You want that incoming healing to stand there and take the hits like a boss. So on this one, I actually took the 2% crit severity purely because if I do a crit with all the other stats, critical strike on top of it, I will do more, and that hits our DPS build side of the build anyway. There's no point in taking the 400 recovery. You can gain that through your silvery enchantments and your gear itself. You do not need this 400 recovery. That's why I took the crit severity. And cool resolve, you gain 2000 power based on how much stamina or guard gain you're missing. As I say, our build, we don't want to sit in sanctity. There's no point in taking this. Whenever you take damage from a foe, you have a chance to proc cold shoulder on them, which reduces their damage of their next attack by 2000. Again, any extra defense that we can take, thumbs up to that. We definitely want that. This is the next part, Avalanche. When damaged by a foe, chance to gain a stack of Avalanche at 20 stacks dealing damage, clears and deals 15,000 damage to nearby foes. Yes please, no brainer, that's part of our build. We're taking the hits, we can then deal it back out again instantly. So the Underdark, what you're going to want is, you don't want the defense and hit points, you want to take the power and hit points on this. The hit points is the bonus for Aura of Courage, and power stacks with your Templar's Wrath, again to get extra temp hit points, and that's why the defense is, you don't really need it that much anymore. So Lifesteal or Crit Strike, our build is DPS and the bubble side, so I took Crit Strike. If you are taking a few more hits and you're on your own a bit more, maybe take Lifesteal. If you're playing PvP, maybe take Lifesteal. And then you gain 1000 regen or combat advantage bonus by 10%. That combat advantage, if it was just a plus 400, I would say the other one every day, but this is a big 10% is a lot, especially with combat advantage, and you are the one that they're looking at, so everyone's going to stand around behind. Yes please. And of course everyone knows regen only works outside of battle, and if you've got a healer with you, or as you're running around through the dungeon getting to your next area of attack, you can just sit in your sanctity and collect the health back anyway. Regen, you don't need it, you really don't need it. And in this one, control effects now heavy, 5% shorter duration when applied to you, or you gain stamina 5% faster. I would take this control effect. That is the one downside of this build. Because you're reliant on your self-sufficient AP gain, you want the control effects to shorter, because if you're stood there getting choked by Tal Al Ghul in the Castle of Never, you aren't generating any AP at all. If you can shorten the time that you're being strangled, you can generate that AP quicker, and your class and your group will not die. You definitely want to take this one over the stamina gain. As I said before, Sanctity is useless. And then gain 10% damage versus demons. Yes please, you're dealing that damage constantly, especially with Avalanche and Bastion and things like that. You regen it out constantly. That's what you want. You want the damage. And then we're going to move on to the Tyranny of Dragons. You want power over hit points. 400 power is great. The hit points is nice, but if you look, Aura of Courage, it's only 1%, so you don't gain that much back from the hit points. Deflection, you want Crit Strike over Deflection. Again, if you're running that Deflect class, have it. Armor penetration or defense, I would take the defense on this one, purely because Judge as your RB or your Vengeful Judge, that increases your armor pen anyway, so you don't need any more. You do need the defense. Lifesteal over regen, as I've said before, and you want grants 10% incoming healing. You want 1 point in that, and then I would say into the other 2 points are the 6% crit severity. As I say, our class is again DPS, so you want that. And the campaign for the Maze Engine, I took the incoming healing. You could take 5% lifesteal if you're PvP, but we want to take the, as I say, 5% shorter durations of control effects over the advantage, combat advantage, and then 3% action point gain, yes please, and your stamina regenerates, no way, you don't want that. And I've been looking at this class, you're striking your foe, 2000 crit strike bonus. No, we don't want that, because crit strike isn't our main thing in the build. It's a good one to have, but no thanks. You probably want to take this one. You gain a shield, increasing damage resistance by 60% when you're below 30% health. That is a nice one to have, because 30% of your 100k, obviously your 30,000, you're right down low. It will give your character or your group a chance to give you some extra health back. Then what we do is we move into the companions. I have got my low companions on at the minute. When you're low off running, you probably want a striker, purely because you're very defensive when you first start off. It's only until you hit level 30 and beyond that you start repping in the attack. So you want to get yourself some stacks of fire archons and earth archon. Don't worry about the water one, that's pretty much useless, or the air one. No thank you. So increase your damage against targets with less than 50% hit points. Yep, why not? As they die, you kill them a lot faster. The earth one increases damage against targets when you are at full health. When you have 10 hit points, you're constantly at full health. This is a great one to have. Why not have it? And my favourite one, Dabs, he's got to be the best one. 15% chance to reflect 10% damage taken. So if the same target hits you 4 times, you will reflect 3 times the damage taken. Have this guy, you're fighting a boss, he's going to hit you 4 times all the time. If there's only one boss in there, it's going to be doing it constantly. And the last one I would pick up is the Yeti. Purely because that Bloodlust procs so often. I haven't got it yet. I am running the Need for Mead to get it anyway. As well as the mounts. If you can get yourself the Leopard of the Chult. I know it's a Zen market and some of you guys haven't always got the money to get it. Or the AD to get it. But if you can get it, because it gives you 2,000 recovery. Winter Wolf is a nice one to have anyway. Plus buy yourself some 5 gold mounts, purely because then you can hold these insignias on them, because if you're wasting them or chucking them away, especially when they're character bound, just slam them in somewhere. Later on, try and change them out for better ones. If you get the AD to buy yourself a blue one like I have, then place them in there just so that it takes up another slot. Then we look at our character, and we're going to look at the gear himself. So I've got the Elven gear. I'm working my way to try and get the guild armor themselves. You want to go fully restoration, purely because of the defense that it gives you. The power, the crit, defense. There we go, that's that one. And then the recovery it gives you is 500. Crit, recovery, defense. And we have power, recovery, defense. And then the final one is crit, recovery, defense. So recovery is a big part in our build. So that's what we want to bring back that AP a lot quicker. The rings are alright. I've put defense on, again, because you can stack defense. It doesn't really matter. You probably want to go for something with power along the lines when you get a lot better and you don't have to rely on getting a ring for defense. But recovery, again, I've got that as a ring itself. And then the gear set. What gear set do you want to go for? Well, you definitely want to go for the Black Ice. They've nerfed the Lost Mouth. They've changed it. It's now a not as great DPS set if you haven't got the class stats itself. So you've got Constitution and Charisma. Just hop over this side. Constitution and Charisma. So Charisma is reliant on the action point gain. If you get that belt and get the 2 points in that, you're going to be getting the AP back quicker. And of course Constitution, no brainer. Aura of Courage. Just look at the stats quickly. Almost 10,000 power, 8,000 defense, 2,000 armor pen, 7,000 recovery. That, of course, is so high because of that 2,000 recovery from my mount. 5,000 crit. We're going to look at the AP gain is 225, and we'll go down a bit further. Action point gain, 40%. That is a very, very high number. You want that as high as possible, and 40% is good for a perma anyway, as I say. Recharge speed, 37%. Your damage resistance is 38%. You're pretty much taking a lot of damage. You want that as high as possible. 30% resistance ignored. And then we're going to look at the enchantments themselves. So you definitely want the Briar Twine, because you reflect damage back again. I would say if you have the money, buy yourself a standard or regular Briar Twine like I have, the 2.8. Any higher, it's good, but it doesn't. The next one, Greater Briar Twine, is about 1 million, and it only goes up to 3.2%. So that increases your damage by about 100. It's not that great. I would just stick with the normal Briar Twine, and then you want to get yourself either the lightning enchantment as high as possible, or get yourself a Fey Touched, because that activates with encounter powers. So you deal 28% weapon damage as lightning damage with every strike. This chains up to 3 times with a 100% chance of each chain. Obviously this is pure, but it drops down when you have a greater to 50% chance to chain each time. But this is insane. If you get Transcendent, if there's only one enemy, again with a boss, that's when you're going to rack up. You get a 33% extra damage. And then you look at the other sets, you have to get the Sigil of the Devoted, purely because this gains your AP back even faster. You want the Oathbound Paladin because you get the maximum hit points, Aura of Courage. This one, and the Sigil of Great Weapons, again, power, armor pen, maximum hit points, no brainer. Black Ice the Beholder, how are you going to get that? It's a very expensive set itself. How do you want to get that? Well, run some Kessel's Retreat, a lot of it. Try and get a group together, run it quite a few times. I actually ran it once, I have to say. I ran it once and pulled it out of the box. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I need to get the Black Ice. Let's do it today. Let's start running them. I got a group together. Bang, got it instantly. Just disbanded the group. And that was it. I had enough. But you have to get this. And again, get it to Mythic. If you haven't watched my Artifact refinement video, you have to get it up because you get 1,000 recovery as well as the armor pen itself. And then, of course, I have got the neck of the Greater Cloak of Ice. That is expensive. The neck and the belt itself are quite expensive on the market, purely because the only ways to get it are through Kessel's Retreat. You can buy them for Black Ice, but it's about 250,000 per piece, so it does get very expensive itself. And enchantments on the character, you want to run Silveries and Azures, and then later on you can change those Azures to Radiance. Anyway guys, if you've enjoyed this video, subscribe for the channel for more stuff just like this. And as always guys, I will see you next time.